over the last 3 years, I've built AI systems for more than 75 businesses. And I'm talking about everything from solo founders all the way up to large enterprise teams. And the pattern is pretty consistent. The companies that are generating a real ROI aren't the ones that are just collecting tools. They're the ones that are following a very simple process. Because here's what I keep seeing. People watch demos, they get excited about ChatGPT, and then they try to bolt random AI tools onto their day-to-day operations. And that's when things start falling apart. And it's not because AI is useless, but it's because they're trying to automate chaos. And the pattern that I keep seeing is that they end up spending money, they're annoying their teams, they're annoying the processes, and they basically get nothing back. Whereas the businesses that start with the systems first, you know, like the boring, unsexy part, that's where you get the real wins. I'm talking about you get your time back, you get faster response times, less manual chasing, and more margins. So if you feel like your business is messy, you're constantly in the weeds, and you want to scale without working yourself into the ground, then this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through the same 6-step framework that I use with my private clients, and I'll show you a real example of how this produced a very strong ROI when we implemented it properly. And just so you know, this works whether you're running a medical practice, a property management firm, you know, a law firm. It just doesn't matter. The steps don't change. Cool. So let's get into it. The biggest reason that businesses fail with AI isn't that AI is too hard. It's that they're starting backwards. They see something cool online and then they go hunting for a place to shove this into their business. So step one is the audit. Before you build anything, you have to find the point where your business is actually leaking either time, money, or energy. Right now, inside my CEO operating system, my clients are given a dashboard that makes this painfully obvious. But if you don't have this, then follow these 2 steps instead. Step number 1 is write a proper problem statement. You see, most people say, I want to use AI to get more sales, but that's not a problem statement. It's like a very generic wish. A real problem statement sounds like, I need to cut lead response time by 50% without hiring another VA. Now we have something very specific and we can actually measure it. Step 2 is to build a quick logic tree. Okay, stop guessing and start diagnosing. If profit is down, is it because of revenue or is it because of cost? If it's revenue, is it because of lead flow or conversion retentions? And if it's cost, is it because of labor, refunds, inefficiencies, software sprawl? You need to keep breaking it down until you find the one lever that actually moves the numbers. That's where we start. We automate because it removes an expensive bottleneck. But finding the problem is literally only half the battle, because once they find it, the problem that I see most business owners make is that they actually make the bottleneck worse. I'll show you exactly why that is and the Elon Musk framework that I use that solves it in step 2. You see, step 2 is called first principles thinking. Once you find the bottleneck, most people immediately do the wrong thing. They think, okay, cool. How do I get AI to do this task the exact same way that I was doing it before? That is completely the wrong way to be thinking about it. Because if you automate a legacy process, then you're not creating leverage. You're just making a bad workflow run faster. And this is where most businesses get trapped. They copy what they've seen online, you know? So my competitor's got a chatbot, so I need to do the same thing. That's not a strategy. It's a panic buying tool, and it's not going to take you very far. First principles is completely different, right? It's about stripping down the process to what must be true and then rebuilding it from scratch. I love first principles thinking, right? It's all about the outcome at the end and then reverse engineering the most logical path forward. So I'm going to give you my framework for how I integrate first principles thinking into my business. Number 1, deconstruct. Okay, so take your bottleneck, let's say it's client onboarding, for example, and then break it down into real components. Stop thinking, how do I automate the welcome email? And instead, start thinking, what does onboarding actually need to achieve? It needs the right data. It needs agreement. It needs clarity. You know, it needs to make the client feel taken care of. That's the job. Everything else is fluff until proven otherwise. Step number 2, interrogate. Now you need to pressure test every single step. Ask why until the nonsense falls out. You know, for example, why do we need a 60-minute kickoff call? And if it's to collect login details, why does that require a call? And when you follow this process, you realize that so much of your business is just inherited behavior, you know, old decisions, old habits, old process, scar tissue. So just cut it out. And then finally, step number 3, rebuild. Now you need to rebuild the workflow like a modern operator. You know, instead of maybe your old onboarding process, maybe we can integrate AI to say a form gets filled, AI checks the completeness, the contract gets generated, the welcome is sent, tasks are created in the CRM, and then internal handoffs happen automatically. And do you notice what we did there? We didn't just add AI to the old process. What we did is we redesigned the whole process and then used AI to run the repetitive parts at scale. Right, so now you have step one, which is the bottleneck. You have step two, which is the blueprint. But here's the part that nobody tells you. If you turn this automation on and you just decide to walk away, then what you end up doing is you could destroy trust really fast between you and your customer, because AI eventually will say something weird, miss some context, or send the wrong thing to the wrong person. Which is why step three is the safety valve, right? This is where we integrate human in the loop architecture. Here's the truth, guys. AI is probabilistic, but it's not deterministic. You see, Excel, for example, something that so many people are used to, it does exactly what you tell it to every time. Whereas AI makes the best guesses based on patterns, and sometimes it's gonna guess wrong, and you can't blame it. It's still very, very naive. It's still very new in its conception. But the problem for us is that if you automate anything client-facing with zero oversight, then you're gambling with your reputation. So what we do instead is very simple. We install a control system, right? And I call it a traffic light protocol. There's actually quite a few things in my CEO operating system that are run on a RAG status, but it's a very simple way, it's a very simple heuristic for you to control your business in a very light touch way. Because essentially the question isn't, can AI do this? The question is, what happens if it gets it wrong? So we have a system, right? We have green, amber, and red. The green zone is low risk stuff, right? I'm talking about internal stuff, tagging, summaries, categorizing tickets. And the rule here is full autonomy, right? Just let it run because it doesn't impact the final customer. The yellow zone is medium risk, right? I'm talking about drafting emails, writing follow-ups, creating proposals. So the rule here is co-pilot mode, right? So AI drafts it, a human approves it, and then you hit send, right? So you're the editor, not the writer. So it's still doing the bulk of the work, but you need to be there for the final 10%. And then finally is the red zone, right? This is the high risk stuff. I'm talking about money, compliance, refunds, angry customers, anything that's sensitive. So the rule here is gatekeeper mode. You have to build in a system that asks for approval, right? So nothing goes out until someone signs off on it. So instead of the yellow where it's like a light touch, the red is a must go through you. That's how you scale without stress. So your AI does your heavy lifting, your team does the quality control, and the business doesn't get exposed to dumb errors. But even with that safety layer, guys, there's a second problem that quietly kills most AI systems, and it's called drift. You see, your business changes, offers change, policies change, and eventually your AI slowly gets out of date. But nobody starts noticing it until it starts making expensive mistakes, which is exactly why step number 4 is non-negotiable, and it's the feedback loop. Most people build an automation and treat it like a toaster, right? They switch it on and then they walk away. That is the fastest way to make your AI system useless, because your business changes constantly and AI is just a predetermined logic, so it doesn't stay correct by default. So our goal is to bake in improvements into the workflow. So here's the rule. Every correction has to become training data. So when your team fixes something, like it rewrites a draft email, it corrects a response, it changes their classification, then that shouldn't just disappear into thin air. What we need to do is capture it. We log what the AI did, what the human changed, and why. And then we take that and we feed it back into the prompt, the rules, or the knowledge base. And it's the same thing that Apple do, right? So any of these big companies, you know, when your iPhone starts pinging or something goes wrong or an app crashes, then what Apple says is, can I send this diagnostic report to the producer or the firm? And all the big companies do this, right? Okay. So you take the feedback from your processes that aren't working and you bring it back so that you can use it to fix the future. That one habit can turn your systems into an asset, right? So week 1 is rough. Week 2, it might be noticeably better. But by month 2, for example, your team starts trusting it because it's been shaped by your standards. And this is the difference that most people miss. You're not building a one-time automation. You're building a machine that gets smarter inside your business the more you use it. So now if you've done step 1 to 4 properly, you have an automation that actually works, but you'll hit a new ceiling. Not because the AI isn't good enough, but because your automations are about to get stuck in silos. That's what we're going to solve in step number 5. So step 5 is breaking the silos trap. This is where most businesses think they're automated, but they're not. They've got an AI for marketing, they have an AI for sales, maybe they even have an AI for operations, but none of them actually talk to each other. Marketing captures the leads, but sales has no context. Sales closes the deal, but operations find out too late, right? Support gets a ticket and has no idea what was promised. So who becomes the integration layer? You've built pockets of efficiency, but the handoffs between them are still manual. And handoffs are where businesses bleed time time and energy. So to actually automate the business, you have to stop automating tasks in isolation and start building end-to-end flow. That's the difference between task automation and orchestration. So here are the 3 phases that I use to integrate all of my automations. Phase number 1 is direct handoffs, right? This is the fastest win. When marketing finishes qualifying a lead, then the workflow shouldn't end there. It should trigger the next step automatically, right? So create the deal, assign the owner, send the follow-up, maybe even log the context. Not you telling your teams that I'll send it over, no Slack messages, no copy and paste, just get it done automatically. Phase 2 is the central brain, okay? As you scale, direct handoffs get messy, so you can't have 1,000 one-off connections. What you need to do instead is build a source of truth, okay? Usually a CRM or a database like Airtable. Everything reads from it, everything writes back to it. That way, sales, ops, and support are all operating off of the same reality. Support can see what was sold, ops can see what needs delivering, and sales can see what's happening after the close. It's all connected to one central nervous system. And then finally is phase 3, okay? And this is what I call the golden thread. Now we're getting into advanced elite territory for AI automations here. What you do is you map the data path from first touch all the way through to cash collected. So we're going from ad click to lead to qualification to sale to onboarding to delivery, invoicing and payment. And then you hunt for breaks in that line, right? Where is time and energy being wasted? Anywhere that a human has to move information manually or there's a bottleneck in the process. And you eliminate that process with proper integrations using your central nervous system, okay? And when you do this, you don't just save time, you increase speed. And all of these things help you generate more revenue, more profits in your business because you have the time and energy to focus. Your business starts moving like software, right? It's consistent, fast and scalable instead of moving at the speed of humans just pushing information around. And when people do things, a lot of times things can go wrong as well. So now an important question is, does this actually work? So I'm going to stop talking theory for a second and I'm actually going to show you a real example of what I did for a company back in 2025. We audited a property management firm last year. I think they were based in California or San Francisco, somewhere in America. They had about 400 units, 12 staff, and the workflow, if I'm honest, it was chaos, right? They were good people, but the systems were very messy. Now, on the surface, everything looked fine, but when I conducted the audit I was talking about in phase 1, we exposed a real killer for their business. It was speed to lead. They were taking around 4 hours to respond to a rental inquiry. And in that window, prospects were already gone. And it wasn't a quality issue, though. They weren't losing these leads to better apartments. They were losing to faster landlords. And then when we conducted our cost analysis, we found out that that delay was costing them 6 figures a year in lost leases. And the founder asked me to build him a chatbot so we can speed this up. And I was just like, no, we're going to build an entire ecosystem. So we connected every lead source straight into an AI-led workflow, right? So now if someone inquires even at 2 a.m., the system doesn't just send a generic reply like a chatbot would. It checks the person's budget. It checks the unit availability. It proposes a time for an inspection. It books the tour. And it also updates the CRM automatically with context. End to end, the entire system was taken care of. And the result was that response time went from 4 hours to under 20 seconds. And because of this automation, they started closing 8 extra leases a month, almost, I think it was immediately. That worked out to about 160K a year in additional revenues just from this one change alone, right? And then we automated maintenance coordination as well, and that cut labor load by 40K. So the total first year value for this client was in the region of 200K just from this one automation. Now, as you guys may know, AI automation is only one part of what I build for my clients inside the CEO operating system. The full program is 10K and it includes mindset, the systems, the delegation layer, and the automation layer, right? It's literally the full stack. It also includes CEO dashboard. So for this client, just one part of my CEO operating system was able to generate them a 20x ROI. And if I'm honest, that's not even the craziest result. I've seen this at a bigger scale too. For example, I worked with one of my clients, Brennan, right? He was at Rentable Terminix, and we automated their entire field inspection workflow. We cut out so much manual work in his process that it translated into, I think it was over $1 million in savings, and we only had a 2-month project. He's got a video testimonial on my Instagram if you want to go check it out and see what I did for him. That's the power of following this system. But here's the part that most people miss. All of the automation in the world is useless if you don't do this final step. Step 6 is the reinvestment. And this is the most important step. Not because it's technical, but because it decides whether any of this was worth it in the first place. Because the real question is, what do you do with all of this time and energy that you just got back? You see, if I save you 10, 20, 40 hours a week and you refill it with more ad admin, more firefighting, more meetings that you don't need, then your ROI is just zero. You didn't build freedom, you just made room for more chaos. The goal is time and energy reallocation, okay? You take those reclaimed hours and you reinvest them into the only things that actually move the business. I'm talking about strategy, I'm talking about partnerships, hiring and delegation, improving the offer, building more automations, building distribution, building the roadmap. This is the shift from operator to owner, right? From the hustler to the CEO. And that's what my whole mission is about. I don't just want you to run faster. I want you to build a business that scales without you being the bottleneck so that you can scale your business and scale your life at the same time. So that's the 6-step framework, guys. Audit the bottleneck, rebuild it with first principles, add in human in the loop control, install a feedback loop, break silos, and reinvest the time like a CEO. Now, I need to be real with you. AI is not a magic pill. If you slap AI on top of a messy business, then you don't get efficiency, you get chaos faster. Automation is the final step, not the first one. That's literally why I killed my AI automation agency and instead built the CEO operating system. My system isn't just some AI course, it's not a random consulting package. It's a step-by-step operating framework designed to remove you as the bottleneck, systematically. Here's what we actually do. We get clear on the vision and the outcome that you're building towards, right? For your business and your life. We strip out all of the time wasters and the friction. We systemize your operations around customer value. We tighten your delegation so that your team can run without you. Then we implement AI automations like the ones that you've seen in this video. And then finally, we put the icing on the cake with a CEO dashboard so comprehensive and so simple that you can manage the entire health of your business from one quick view every morning. And here's the part that most people don't like hearing, but it's true. You're already paying for a lack of system. You pay for it every time you miss a dinner because something blew up. You pay for it in payroll when people are waiting on decisions that only you can make. You pay for it in growth that doesn't happen because you're stuck operating instead of leading. The cost is leaving your business either way, right? The only question is whether you're getting the freedom, the time, the energy, and the income in return. So if you want me to show you how this applies to your business, then do this. Send me a DM on Instagram with the word CEO. I'll personally reply to you, ask you a couple quick questions, and map out where your biggest bottleneck is so that you understand what's holding you back. If it's a fit, then we can talk about working together. And if it's not, then you'll still walk away with the clarity on what your next move should be. If this sounds interesting to you, then just DM me saying CEO. I'll catch you in the next one.